Have you ever felt like a prisoner of your own mind? Trapped in an endless cycle of worries about the future, regrets about the past, and a mental noise so loud you can barely hear your own feelings? In our relentless pursuit of happiness, success, and peace, we often forget that the most important battlefield and the source of all our suffering or all our joy lies within us. Our mind, when left unchecked, is like a wild horse, powerful, untamed, and capable of taking us to dangerous places. It drags us into anxiety, sinks us into anger, and convinces us that we are not good enough. But what if I told you there was a way to tame this horse? What if you could transform your mind from your greatest enemy into your greatest ally? Over 2,500 years ago, a prince named Siddhartha Gautama discovered exactly that. He realized that the root of all human suffering was not in external circumstances, but in how our mind reacts to them. His teachings, which we know today as Buddhism, are not just a religion, but a profound and practical manual for understanding and mastering the workings of our own consciousness. In this video, we won't just talk about theories. We are going to embark on a deep 10-chapter journey through the essential Buddhist teachings to master your mind and, finally, find lasting inner peace. This isn't a quick fix. It is the beginning of a profound transformation. But before we dive into this ancient wisdom, I ask for a moment of your attention. If you are ready to stop being controlled by your thoughts and start living with more clarity, calm, and purpose, do two things for us. Click the subscribe button and activate the bell so you don't miss any chapter of this journey. And if this topic already resonates with you, leave your like right now. Your support is what allows us to continue bringing these transformative teachings to the world. Now take a deep breath. Empty your cup. Let's begin our journey. Chapter 1. The Cloudy Mirror, the Untamed Mind and the Illusion of Self. Our first step on this journey is not to try to change anything. It is simply to see clearly what exactly this mind is that we are trying to tame. Most of us live our entire lives without ever truly examining the mechanism that generates every thought, every emotion, and every decision. We identify so much with the stream of consciousness that we believe we are that stream. Buddhism offers us a mirror, but what we initially see is not pleasant. We see a cloudy mirror, covered in the dust of confusion. What the Buddha called the untamed mind is what modern psychology might call the monkey mind. It is the default state of human consciousness. Imagine a monkey jumping from branch to branch, non-stop, without direction, just reacting to the immediate impulse. One branch is a worry about the rent. The next branch is an embarrassing memory from 10 years ago. The next is what we'll have for dinner. The next is a fantasy about winning the lottery. The monkey never rests, and we are that monkey. This constant noise is not harmless. It is the primary source of what Buddhist teachings call dukkha, or suffering. We aren't just talking about physical pain, but that pervasive feeling of dissatisfaction, that something is always missing, that life is never quite right. The untamed mind is a dukkha-creating machine. It does this in three main ways: through desire, attachment, aversion, anger, and ignorance, confusion. When the monkey mind jumps to something we like, it generates attachment. I need this to be happy, and we suffer because we either don't have it or we're afraid of losing it. When it jumps to something we don't like, it generates aversion. I hate this. This shouldn't be happening. And we suffer because we are fighting reality. But the deepest poison is ignorance. not a lack of book knowledge, but the fundamental ignorance of who we really are. This is where the great illusion of the self comes in. We think there is a solid, permanent, and independent I in charge. A CEO sitting in the chair of our head, making all the decisions. Buddhism radically asks us to look for this CEO. Where is he? When you observe your thoughts, who is thinking them? And who is observing the observer? What we discover when we look closely is that there is no fixed thinker. There is only the thought. There is no permanent feeler. There is only the feeling arising and disappearing. This self that we defend so fiercely is, in fact, a construct. It's a story our mind tells itself, woven from memories, labels, fears, and desires. I am an anxious person. I am good at math. I am someone who always gets betrayed. The untamed mind loves these labels. They give the monkey something to cling to, but every label is a bar in the prison we build for ourselves. Why is this so important? Because you cannot tame something you don't understand. Trying to fight the monkey mind with more thoughts is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Trying to think positive while the underlying structure of the mind is chaotic is like painting a moldy wall. The paint will peel. The first Buddhist teaching for mastering the mind is stop fighting. Just observe. Buddhism invites us to become scientists in our own internal laboratory. The practice of sati or mindfulness, which we will explore deeply in the next chapters, begins here. It is the simple yet revolutionary act of observing the monkey mind without judgment. When the monkey jumps to anger, you don't scold it. You just notice, anger is present. When it jumps to anxiety about the future, you notice, planning, worrying. First, this is frustrating. The mind is like a wild horse that has never known a bridle. The moment you try to observe it, it rebels. It will pull you into 1,000 distractions. You will try to meditate and, within 10 seconds, you'll be planning your weekend. The teaching here is not to force the mind to be quiet. The teaching is to notice that it has wandered. That moment of noticing is a moment of awakening. It is the first ray of light piercing the fog of ignorance. Inner peace doesn't begin when the thoughts stop. They never stop. Inner peace begins when you stop believing every thought that arises. It begins when you realize that you are not the noise. You are the silence behind the noise. You are not the storm. You are the vast, open sky where the storm happens. This chapter is the foundation. It is the recognition that our default mental state is one of chaos and illusion. It's frightening, but it's also liberating. If the prison is made of illusions, of stories and mental habits, it means the door isn't locked. We hold the key ourselves, and the key is consciousness. In the next chapters, we will learn exactly how to use this key to open, one by one, the doors that separate us from our true nature. Inner peace. Chapter 2. The anatomy of suffering, understanding dukkha and attachment. In the previous chapter, we looked into the cloudy mirror of our untamed mind. We saw the chaos, the monkey mind jumping from branch to branch, and the illusion of a solid self in charge. Now, we must ask the most fundamental question of all, the question that began the Buddha's entire spiritual journey. Why do we suffer? The Buddhist teachings are famous for starting with a statement that seems pessimistic, but is, in fact, profoundly realistic and liberating. It is the first noble truth. Life is dukkha. The word dukkha is often translated as suffering, but its meaning is much more subtle and comprehensive. It doesn't just mean the obvious pain of illness, the loss of a loved one, or financial failure. That is obvious dukkha. But dukkha is also the subtle dissatisfaction we feel even when everything is fine. It's that restlessness, that feeling that something is missing, that boredom on a perfect day, that anxiety that arises for no apparent reason. Dukkha is the fundamental tension of being a conscious human being in an impermanent world. Buddha was not a pessimist for stating this. He was a doctor. A doctor, to cure a disease, must first diagnose it correctly. Saying life is dukkha is not a condemnation. It is the diagnosis. It is the recognition that, if we don't understand the nature of our mind, dissatisfaction will be our constant companion. So, what is the cause of this illness? The Buddha's diagnosis, expressed in the second noble truth, is radical in its simplicity. The cause of dukkha is tanha, a word translated as desire, thirst, or, more accurately, attachment or clinging. Here, we need to be very careful. Buddhism is not saying that desire itself is the problem. It is not wrong to desire food when you are hungry or to desire companionship when you are lonely. The problem isn't the desire, it's the attachment. It's the mental clinging. It's the belief that our happiness depends on getting what we want and avoiding what we don't want. Let's dissect this anatomy. Attachment works like mental glue. Our monkey mind, as we saw, is always jumping. When it lands on something pleasant, a sensation, an object, a compliment, a person, it wants to cling. It says, "This is good. I want more. I need this to last forever." And as soon as that thought arises, suffering begins. Why? Because, as we will see in the next chapter, everything is impermanent. The compliment ends, the person changes, the sensation fades. And because we were attached, we are left with the pain of loss. But attachment has a twin, aversion. Aversion is simply the attachment to not having something. When the mind encounters something unpleasant, a criticism, physical pain, an uncomfortable situation, it tries to push it away. I don't want this. This shouldn't be happening. Make it stop. And again we suffer. We suffer because we are fighting against the reality of the present moment. We are attached to our idea of how things should be, instead of accepting how they are. Attachment and aversion are two sides of the same coin, and that coin is called self. It is the illusory self, the ego, that does all this work. The ego is a hungry entity, constantly needs validation, pleasure, security. It builds its identity around what it has, what it does, and what others think of it. When you get attached to a new car, you aren't attached to the metal and plastic. You are attached to what the car represents to yourself. Status, success, freedom. When you feel aversion to criticism, it's not the words that hurt you. It's the threat they pose to your story of, I am a competent person. This is the mechanics of suffering. We live in a constantly changing world, but our mind, dominated by the ego, desperately tries to freeze time. It tries to create permanent islands of pleasure and security in an ocean of impermanence. And that is a losing battle from the start. Every moment we spend clinging to what has passed, or longing for a future that may never come, is a moment we are suffering. So what is the antidote? If attachment is the glue that binds us to suffering, the antidote is detachment. It is crucial to understand what detachment is not. Detachment is not indifference. It is not coldness. It is not failing to love people or to enjoy the good things in life. that would be just another form of aversion. True Buddhist detachment is the opposite. It is the freedom to love and enjoy fully, precisely because we are not trying to possess or control. Detachment is understanding that you can appreciate a magnificent sunset without needing to put it in a box to keep. You experience it fully, knowing it will fade, and that impermanence is part of its beauty. Detachment is loving someone with all your heart, not by trying to make that person a source for your happiness, but by appreciating the time you have together, moment by moment, without the anxiety of possession. Mastering the mind, therefore, means training yourself to see the mechanisms of attachment in real time. It means observing the monkey mind, and when it tries to cling to something, pleasure, or push something away, pain, you simply notice. There is attachment. There is aversion. You don't judge yourself for it. You just observe. And in every act of conscious observation, the glue of attachment begins to lose its grip. In the next chapter, we will explore the most powerful tool for dissolving this glue, impermanence. We will understand why accepting that everything changes is not a tragedy, but the ultimate key to our freedom. Chapter 3. The ever-flowing river, embracing anicca, impermanence. If the diagnosis for our suffering dukkha is attachment, tanha, then we must now examine the environment where this illness thrives. Buddhism teaches us that attachment can only exist when it is fed by a fundamental illusion. And that illusion is our belief in permanence. We fight against the world, we try to cling to things, because we operate under the false premise that things can be permanent. The Buddha offered a radical antidote to this illusion, one of the central concepts of his teachings, anicca. Anicca is the Pali word for impermanence. It is not a complex philosophical theory. It is a direct, relentless observation of reality. Anicca means that everything changes. Everything. Without exception. Look around you. The chair you're sitting on is, at a molecular level, slowly wearing away. The body you call mine is changing every second. Cells die, new cells are born, air moves in and out. Your thoughts are the most obvious example. How many thousands of thoughts have passed through your mind just today? Where are they now? Emotions come like clouds. Intense fury dissolves. Deep joy transforms into calm. The planet spins, seasons change, empires rise and fall. Nothing is static. Life is not a collection of fixed nouns. It is a series of fluid verbs. Everything is in process. Everything is a flow. The Buddha used the metaphor of the river. You cannot step into the same river twice, for both the river and you have already changed. This seems obvious, doesn't it? Of course, I know everything changes, but knowing this intellectually is completely different from understanding it on a deep, visceral level. In our daily lives, we act in the exact opposite way. We create expectations that our relationship will be happy forever. We expect our health to be good forever. We are shocked and angry when things break, when people disappoint us, or when we get old. We live in denial of anicca, and this denial is the crack through which suffering enters. Remember what we said in the last chapter. Suffering is the friction between attachment and reality. Now we can see it more clearly. Attachment is our desire for things to be permanent. Reality is anicca, impermanence. Our suffering is the direct result of trying to grasp what, by its very nature, cannot be grasped. It is like trying to hold river water in a clenched fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips away. This is why mastering the mind requires embracing impermanence. The untamed mind hates anicca. The monkey mind wants solid branches to hold on to. It wants security, certainty, predictability. And when life shows it that everything is uncertain and unpredictable, the monkey mind panics. It creates anxiety, fear of a future change, and depression, attachment to a past that has changed. Inner peace, on the other hand, is found by making peace with anicca. It is to stop fighting the river and learn to flow with it. How do we do this in practice? It begins, once again, with conscious observation. Vipassana meditation, central to Buddhism, is literally an exercise in observing anicca in real time. The practitioner sits quietly and observes the sensations in their body. They might notice an itch. The untamed mind immediately reacts, "I hate this." Scratch it. Attachment to comfort and aversion to the itch arise. But the trained practitioner simply observes the itch without reacting. And what happens? The itch changes. It might get more intense, it might move, or it might simply disappear. In that small act, a profound truth is revealed. The sensation arose, it existed for a time, and it passed. It was impermanent. By not reacting, by neither clinging nor pushing away, the practitioner experienced freedom. Now apply this to everything. You feel a wave of anger. Instead of identifying with it, "I am angry," and acting on it, yelling, blaming, you observe it as you would the itch. Ah, there is a sensation of anger. It's hot. It's in my chest. My heart is racing. You just watch, knowing that, like everything else, this too shall pass. And it does. You didn't feed the fire with more angry thoughts, so it burns out from lack of fuel. This is mastering the mind. It's not about stopping the feelings, but about understanding their impermanent nature. Embracing anicca radically transforms our experience of life. When you deeply understand that everything is impermanent, two wonderful things happen. First, you suffer less. You stop fighting losing battles against reality. When difficult moments arise, a layoff, the end of a relationship, an illness, you still feel the pain, of course. Buddhism does not promise anesthesia. But underneath the pain, there is an understanding, this too shall pass. You don't add a second layer of suffering. The why me? This isn't fair. My life is over. By clinging to the idea that things should be different. Second, and perhaps most beautifully, you begin to appreciate the good moments more. If you know that a moment of joy is impermanent, you don't experience it with the anxiety of trying to make it last. Instead, you dive into it completely. You savor it. You are 100% present for it because you know it is precious and fleeting. You love more deeply, laugh more freely, and see the beauty in small things because you understand that every moment is a unique gift that will never be repeated in exactly the same way. Impermanence is not a curse. It is what gives life meaning. It is what makes every moment precious. The tamed mind is one that has learned to dance with change instead of being dragged by it. In the next chapter, we will explore the fundamental tool that allows us to see anicca clearly and stop fighting it. The practice of mindfulness, or sati. Chapter 4. The silent observer, sati. The practice of mindfulness. In the previous chapters, we've laid out the map of our inner territory. We identified the monkey mind and the illusion of the self, Chapter 1. We diagnosed the cause of our suffering as attachment, tanha, Chapter 2. And we understood the terrain on which this all takes place, the relentless flow of impermanence, anicca, Chapter 3. Diagnosis made, terrain mapped. Now we need the tool. We need the practical skill that allows us to navigate this territory instead of being a victim of it. In Buddhist teachings, this central tool, the heart of all practice, is called sati. We know it in the West as mindfulness. But what is sati exactly? The simplest and perhaps most powerful translation is to remember. But what are we remembering? We are remembering to be present. Mindfulness is the practice of remembering to return to the present moment, over and over again without judgment. Why is this so revolutionary? Because, as we saw, our untamed mind lives anywhere but the present. It lives in the past, ruminating on regrets and past glories. If only I had done that. Those were the days. Or it lives in the future, weaving fantasies and, more often, cultivating anxieties. What if I lose my job? Will I be happy? The past is gone, the future does not yet exist. Both are illusions, mental projections. The only moment we ever truly live, the only moment we have any power, is right now. The problem is that we spend 99% of our lives on autopilot, completely unaware of the now. We are physically present, but mentally absent. Have you ever driven for miles to your home and, upon arriving, realized you remember nothing of the journey? That is the opposite of sati. Have you ever listened to someone talk, nodding your head, while your mind was planning dinner? Have you ever eaten an entire meal while watching TV, without really tasting anything? This is the state of sleep we live in. Sati is the act of waking up. Mindfulness is the quality of awareness that notices what is happening, while it is happening. It is not a mystical or complicated state. It is, in fact, incredibly simple, though it is not easy. It is the ability to become a silent observer of your own experience. Let's break down how this practice works. Mindfulness rests on two pillars: attention and attitude. The first pillar is attention, the act of consciously directing the focus of your awareness. The most famous formal practice is breath meditation. You sit and you decide to observe the sensation of the air entering and leaving your body. That's it. But, as anyone who has tried knows, within 10 seconds the monkey mind is gone. Did I answer that email? My back hurts. I need to buy milk. Here is where most beginners give up, thinking, I can't meditate, my mind won't stop. But they are missing the crucial point. The goal of meditation is not to stop the thoughts. The goal is to notice that you got distracted. The magic moment is not when you are focused on the breath. The magic moment is when you were lost in thought and suddenly you remember to come back. I wandered. And gently, without blaming yourself, you bring your attention back to the breath. Every time you do that, get distracted, notice, return, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are weakening the habit of autopilot and strengthening the muscle of awareness. It's like taking a stubborn puppy for a walk. It will run after everything, and your job is to patiently bring it back to the path, 1,000 times if necessary. The second pillar is attitude, the way you pay attention. And this is perhaps the most transformative part. Mindfulness is not a cold, analytical, or critical attention. The attitude of sati is one of non-judgment, curiosity, and kindness. When you sit to meditate and your mind is a chaos, the automatic reaction is, damn, I'm terrible at this. My mind is garbage. That is judgment. That is the ego. Mindfulness invites a different attitude. Wow, my mind is really busy today. How interesting. You observe the chaos as you would observe weather patterns without taking it personally. When a feeling of sadness arises, mindfulness doesn't say, "I shouldn't be sad. I have to be positive." That is aversion. Instead, it says, "Ah, sadness is here. Where do I feel it in my body? What does this sensation feel like?" You investigate it with a gentle curiosity, giving it space to be what it is. And, paradoxically, by allowing a feeling to be fully felt, without resistance, it loses its power over you and dissolves on its own, following the law of anicca, impermanence. This is how the silent observer masters the mind. It doesn't use force. It doesn't fight. It doesn't repress. It uses light. Awareness is like a light. When you shine a light on the habitual, reactive patterns of your mind, they begin to lose their power. Attachment, anger, fear, they only thrive in the darkness of unconsciousness. When you practice sati, you begin to create a small gap between the stimulus, what happens, and the response, your reaction. Before, someone said something rude, and you instantly reacted with anger. The stimulus and response were one thing. With the practice of mindfulness, someone says something rude, and you feel the anger arise. But because you have trained to be the observer, you see the anger. You feel the heat, the tightness in your chest. And in that fraction of a second of observation, the gap opens. You now have a choice. You can react as you always have, or you can breathe and choose a wiser response. That gap is your freedom. Mastering the mind is not about having an empty mind. It is about having a conscious mind. It's about stopping being a slave to your reactions and becoming the master of your responses. Mindfulness is the tool that builds this freedom one moment at a time. In the next chapter, we will apply this tool to disarm one of the most destructive emotions the monkey mind produces: anger. You have reached the halfway point of this deep dive into Buddhist teachings. If you are still here, it's because something inside you is actively seeking change and peace. You aren't just watching a video. You are investing in mastering your own mind. I want to ask for your support to continue this journey. If the content you've seen so far has brought you any insight, any clarity, please click the like button right now. Your like is the energy that fuels us and signals to the algorithm that this is valuable content that more people need to see. And if, for some reason, you haven't subscribed yet, this is the perfect time. Click subscribe and join our community of conscious minds. Don't miss the final chapters, where we will solidify all this knowledge. Thank you for your support. Now, let's address one of the most powerful and destructive emotions we face: the fire of anger. Chapter 5. Taming the Inner Fire, Buddhist Wisdom on Anger. Of all the storms that rage in our mind, none is as immediate, as hot, and as destructive as anger. Anger is a fire that, if left uncontrolled, consumes not only its target, but first and foremost, the very container where it burns. You. Anger destroys relationships, harms our health, and clouds our judgment, leading us to say and do things we almost always regret. In the West, we often have a confusing relationship with anger. Some tell us to let it all out, that repressing it is harmful. Others tell us to think positive, a form of spiritual bypassing. Buddhism offers a third way, a radically different and profoundly effective approach. The teachings do not ask you to repress anger, nor to express it blindly. They ask you to understand it. To master the mind, you must become an expert in your most difficult emotions. Anger, in Buddhist teachings, is considered one of the three poisons, along with attachment and ignorance, is a poison because it obscures reality and generates more suffering. But like any poison, if understood, it can contain the seed of the antidote. The first step to taming anger is one we've already learned. Use mindfulness. Study. When anger arises, our autopilot, the monkey mind, has a simple script. Identify a culprit. Someone cut us off in traffic. Our colleague disrespected us. Something didn't go our way. The mind immediately says, I am angry because of that. The anger becomes justified, and we feel entitled to express it. Mindfulness interrupts this script. The moment anger arises, the trained practitioner doesn't look outward at the culprit. He looks inward. Instead of saying, you made me angry, the conscious mind notices, there is a sensation of anger arising in me. This change in perspective is everything. You depersonalize the anger. You stop identifying with it. I am angry is an identification. I feel anger is an observation. It is the difference between being lost in the storm and observing the storm from a safe shelter. The silent observer, chapter 4, springs into action. Where is this anger? I feel it in my chest as a tightness. My face is hot. My fists want to clench. My heart is racing. You simply observe the physical sensations of anger with curiosity, without judgment. You treat the anger like an unwanted but interesting guest. You don't kick it out, but you also don't serve it tea and cookies. You just watch it. And what happens when you observe the fire of anger without adding more fuel, the thoughts of blame and justification? It begins to lose its power. Anger is energy. It needs fuel to burn. The fuel for anger is thoughts. He had no right. She always does this. This is unfair. When you stop feeding the story and just focus on the physical sensations, the energy of anger fulfills its biological function and, following the law of impermanence, anicca, it dissipates. But Buddhism goes deeper. Observing anger is first aid. The deep healing comes from understanding its root. The Buddha taught that anger is almost never what it seems. Anger is a facade. It's a mask. Underneath almost all anger, you will find something much more vulnerable, fear or pain. When someone criticizes you and you explode with rage, it's likely the criticism touched a deep insecurity, a fear of not being good enough. When you get angry in traffic because you're late, the anger is masking the fear of the consequence of being late, being reprimanded, looking irresponsible. Anger is the ego's defense mechanism. When the illusory self, chapter 1, feels threatened, hurt, or afraid, it attacks. Anger is a cry of, I'm in pain, or I'm scared. Understanding this changes everything. When anger arises, the advanced practitioner asks themselves, with compassion, what is hurt in me right now? What is afraid? This disarms the anger at its source. You shift from blame, external, to self-compassion, internal. The final antidote to the poison of anger, the Buddha taught, is metta or loving kindness. This is a concept we will explore later, but it begins here. The Buddha said, hatred never ceases through hatred. Hatred ceases only through love. This is not a sentimental cliché. It is a practical instruction. When you are angry at someone, your mind is stuck in a loop of aversion. Practicing metta is to actively wish for that person to be well, happy, and free from suffering. Does this seem impossible? Start small. You don't start with the person who hurt you the most. You start with yourself. When you are angry, direct loving kindness toward yourself. I am suffering right now. May I have peace. May I be free from this pain. By doing this, you soothe your own nervous system. You give yourself the compassion you were seeking externally through your anger. Taming the inner fire isn't about becoming an emotionless robot. It's about becoming an emotional alchemist. It's about learning to take the raw, destructive energy of anger and, through the wisdom of mindfulness and compassion, transform it into clarity, strength, and peace. In the next chapter, we will look at the other side of the coin, our relentless pursuit of pleasure and how detachment frees us from it. Chapter 6. The Golden Trap, Detachment versus Indifference. In the previous chapters, we focused heavily on how to deal with difficult experiences. The chaotic mind, suffering, impermanence, and anger. We learned to use mindfulness to observe and dissolve what is painful. But what about the good things in life? What about pleasure, success, love, joy? Here we enter the territory of one of the deepest and most frequently misunderstood Buddhist teachings, detachment. And we encounter what we can call the golden trap. If suffering dukkha arises from aversion, pushing away pain, it also arises with equal or greater intensity from attachment, clinging to pleasure. The golden trap is our relentless pursuit of happiness outside of ourselves. It's the belief that if only I can get that, the perfect job, the ideal relationship, more money, recognition, then I will be happy. This pursuit puts us on a treadmill, what Buddhists call samsara, the cycle of suffering. We chase after pleasure. When we achieve it, we experience a momentary happiness. But because of anicca, impermanence, the pleasure inevitably fades or diminishes. That new car becomes just the car. That compliment is forgotten. The initial passion cools. And because the pleasure faded, we go back to feeling dissatisfied, dukkha. So what do? We run off chasing the next thing. We become addicted to peaks of pleasure, and the rest of life seems dull in comparison. This is the golden trap. It's golden because what we seek is attractive, but it's a trap because the pursuit itself guarantees our unhappiness. The Buddha's antidote to this trap is detachment. And this is where the confusion begins. To the Western mind, detachment sounds like coldness, indifference, a lack of passion. It sounds like Buddhism is asking us to become apathetic robots who don't care about anything or anyone. This is a fundamental mistake. Indifference is a state of numbness, of being closed off. It's a form of aversion, a fear of getting hurt. I won't care, so I won't suffer. That isn't freedom. It's another prison. True Buddhist detachment, nekkhamma, is the exact opposite. It is not caring. It is not clinging. Detachment is the freedom to fully experience joy, love, and success, precisely because you are not terrified of losing them. It is the understanding that you can appreciate the beauty of a flower without needing to rip it from the garden and keep it for yourself, where it will inevitably wilt. Let's make this practical. Imagine you are falling in love. The attachment-based reaction, the monkey mind, is, I need this person to love me back. I need them to complete me. What would I do if they left me? Fear and possessiveness are born instantly. The joy of love is immediately contaminated by the anxiety of losing it. The detachment-based reaction is, how wonderful to be feeling this. What a gift this person's presence is in my life right now. Detachment loves in the present. Attachment loves in the future. You will be my security. Or the past, remember what you promised. Detachment allows you to love more purely and generously, because it's not about filling a hole in you, but about celebrating the connection. Imagine you achieve great professional success. Detachment says, "Now I am someone. I must maintain this. I need more." Your identity fuses with the success. The fear of failure now becomes your constant companion. Detachment says, "How wonderful. The hard work paid off. I enjoy this moment." But you know deep down that the success does not define who you are. It is something you experience, not something you are. You can enjoy the fruits of success without being enslaved by it. Detachment, therefore, is not a subtraction from life. It is an addition. It adds a layer of peace and freedom to all your experiences. How do we cultivate this? The same way we cultivate everything else. With mindfulness, sati. When you notice a feeling of joy or pleasure, observe it. Enjoy it. Feel it in your body. But also observe the monkey mind when it tries to jump in and say, "How can we make this last forever? We need more." Observe that voice of attachment with the same gentle curiosity you observe anger. Ah, there is clinging. You don't need to fight it. Just seeing it already weakens its grip. You smile at the monkey mind, acknowledging its futile attempt to stop the river of anicca, and you gently return your attention to simply enjoying the present experience, for as long as it lasts. Mastering the mind is finding this delicate balance. It is the middle way that the Buddha taught so much about. It is not extreme asceticism, denying all pleasure, nor hedonism, chasing all pleasure. It is the path of wisdom, to participate fully in the dance of life, to laugh, to love, to create, to succeed, but to do so with open hands. When you live with open hands, you can receive life's gifts without trying to grasp them, and you can let them go gracefully when it's time. That is the freedom from the golden trap. In the next chapter, we will explore how these concepts apply not just to ourselves, but to all beings through compassion. Chapter 7. The Borderless Heart. Karuna, active compassion. Until this point on our journey, our focus has been largely introspective. We have worked to tame our own mind, observing the inner chaos, understanding suffering, accepting impermanence, practicing mindfulness, and learning to navigate anger and attachment. It can seem like a very solitary path, a work focused only on the self. But Buddhist teachings are like a lotus flower. They begin in the mud of self-observation, but they inevitably bloom outward, toward the world. Inner peace, if it is genuine, cannot be an isolated island. True wisdom, prajna, always gives birth to its inseparable companion. Compassion, karuna. Karuna is the Pali and Sanskrit word for compassion. But just as dukkha isn't just suffering, karuna is much more than our Western definition of compassion, which is often simply pity or feeling sorry for someone. Karuna in Buddhism is wisdom's active response to suffering. It is the vibration of the heart that, upon witnessing pain, whether our own or another's, actively wishes for that pain to be relieved. It is not a passive feeling. It is a verb. It is the readiness to act. Why is compassion so essential for mastering the mind? Because compassion is the final antidote to the illusory self. Chapter 1. Remember, the source of our suffering is the monkey mind and the ego, which are obsessed with I, me, mine. My worries, my fears, my desires. This self-fixation builds walls between us and others. We see the world in terms of how it affects us. Compassion is the sledgehammer that tears down these walls. When you practice mindfulness and begin to observe your own mind, you see in excruciating detail how attachment, anger, and fear create suffering for you. You see your own vulnerability. The true practice of karuna begins when you apply this understanding to others. You look at the person who yelled at you in traffic. The monkey mind's reaction is anger. What an idiot! The reaction of compassion, born from wisdom, is, just like me, this person also has a monkey mind. Just like me, they also suffer. Maybe they are late for an emergency, maybe they are afraid of losing their job, maybe they are simply lost in their own storm of anger, just as I have been so many times. Just like me, they also want to be happy and free from suffering. Do you see? Compassion does not excuse harmful behavior, but it understands its origin. It recognizes the universal dukkha. It recognizes that behind every act of cruelty, ignorance, or anger, there is a being who is suffering. This is one of the most radical teachings of Buddhism: interconnection. The illusion of the separate self is just that, an illusion. We are not isolated entities. We are part of a vast web of causes and conditions. Your well-being is intrinsically linked to mine, and ours to that of all beings. As the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh said, we interar. When you understand this, compassion becomes the only logical response to life. And it begins, crucially, with yourself. Many of us are experts at compassion for others, but cruel tyrants to ourselves. We fail at something, and the inner voice says, "You are a failure. You never learn." We make a mistake and punish ourselves with guilt and shame for days. Buddhism teaches that self-compassion is not a luxury. It is the foundation. You cannot give to others what you do not have. Trying to be compassionate to others while hating yourself inside is like trying to pour water from an empty glass. The practice of self-compassion is applying karuna to your own dukkha. It's using mindfulness, chapter 4, to notice your inner pain, and instead of judging it or trying to fix it, you offer it the kindness you would offer a good friend. You place a hand on your heart and say, "This is hard. I am suffering. May I be kind to myself." This practice softens the rigid armor of the ego. And it is from this place of self-compassion that genuine compassion for others can flow. Mastering the mind, therefore, is not a selfish project to create a small personal bubble of peace. It is the process of cleaning the windows of our own perception so that we can see reality clearly. And the reality is that we are all in this together. We are all struggling with our monkey minds. We are all at the mercy of impermanence. And we all want to be happy. When the mind is tamed, it doesn't become empty. It becomes full. Full of clarity, full of peace, and, above all, full of karuna. The heart, once contracted by fear and selfishness, expands. It becomes a borderless heart, capable of holding the suffering of the world without being crushed by it, because it now has the wisdom to understand and the strength to act. Compassion is inner peace in action. In the next chapter, we will explore its sister practice, metta, or loving kindness, the proactive practice of cultivating happiness for ourselves and others. Chapter 8. The Garden of the Mind, Metta, cultivating loving kindness. If in the last chapter we learned about karuna, compassion, wisdom's response to suffering that already exists, we will now learn to plant the seeds of happiness before suffering even appears. We will learn to cultivate the garden of our mind. This practice is called metta. Metta is the Pali word for loving kindness. It is one of the most beloved and central teachings of Buddhism. While mindfulness, sati, is the practice of observing what is present in the mind, metta is the practice of actively cultivating positive qualities. It is an intentional practice of generating feelings of goodwill, kindness, and warmth for both ourselves and all beings. Why is this essential for mastering the mind? Because our mind is governed by habits. The monkey mind, left on its own, has very strong habits: judging, criticizing, fearing, craving, resenting. These are the neural pathways we have walked for decades. If you don't like the weeds growing in your garden, it's not enough to just pull them out. Observe them with mindfulness. You must actively plant the flowers you want to see grow in their place. Metta is the act of planting flowers. It is the practice of actively rewiring our mental habits, trading the patterns of reactivity and negativity for patterns of kindness and openness. The traditional practice of metta, or loving-kindness meditation, is systematic and brilliant. It doesn't ask us to jump straight to universal love, which would be too difficult. It asks us to start manageably in stages. The first step, and for many the hardest, is to direct metta toward yourself. Remember, you cannot pour from an empty glass. The untamed mind is often our own worst enemy, with its constant self-criticism. The practice of metta begins by softening that voice. We sit quietly and, instead of focusing on the breath, we cultivate an intention, repeating phrases like a sincere wish from the heart. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with peace. At first, this can feel mechanical or even false. The critical voice might jump in. You don't deserve to be happy. Mindfulness, Chapter 4, helps us here. We notice that critical voice, judgment, and gently, we return to planting the seeds of metta. We are not trying to feel something immediately. We are planting the seed. The intention is what matters. The second step is to direct metta to a benefactor. Someone in your life who has been genuinely kind to you. A teacher, a friend, a mentor. This is easy. The heart opens naturally. Just as I wish for myself, may this person be safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they live with peace. The third step is to expand to a dear friend. Then to a neutral person, someone you see in your daily life but have no strong feelings about, like the grocery store cashier or the bus driver. Here, we begin to break down the barriers of indifference. The fourth step is the great challenge, directing metta to a difficult person, someone you have a conflict with, someone who has hurt you. This is advanced alchemy. Buddhism doesn't ask you to forget the harm done or pretend the behavior was acceptable. It asks you to recognize something deeper, that this person is also suffering, that their harmful acts come from their own monkey mind, their own dukkha. You wish them well not for their sake, but for yours. You do it to free your own heart from the poison of resentment. As the Buddha said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Practicing metta for the difficult person is the act of dropping the hot coal. Finally, in the fifth step, you expand metta to all beings without exception. To everyone in your city, your country, the whole world. To animals, to the happy and the unhappy. May all beings, everywhere, be happy and free from suffering. What does this practice do to us over time? It changes the chemistry of our mind. The habitual pattern of judgment and separation begins to dissolve. When you meet someone, instead of the monkey mind's automatic reaction, are they a threat? Are they useful to me? A new habit arises, a silent openness, a wish for their well-being. Metta becomes our new autopilot. Mastering the mind, therefore, isn't just about discipline and cold observation. It's about warmth and cultivation. It's about becoming your own best friend. When you fill your mental garden with the flowers of loving kindness, the weeds of anger, fear, and jealousy simply don't find the space or sunlight to grow. Inner peace is not a state of emptiness. It is a state of fullness, a fullness of metta and karuna. In the next chapter, we will explore the natural consequence of such a mind, right speech and right action, how this inner peace translates into how we live our lives in the world. Chapter 9. The Middle Way in Action, Daily Life as Practice. Our training so far has been deep but largely internal. We cultivated the silent observer, sati, learned to dissolve anger, karuna, to detach from pleasure, nekkhamma, and to actively cultivate kindness, metta. But what is the purpose of all this? Is it just so we can sit on a cushion and feel peaceful while the world outside burns? Absolutely not. The inner peace cultivated in meditation is not an end in itself. It is the training ground. The real test and the real purpose is how we bring this tamed mind into our daily lives. Buddhism is not an escape from life. It is a deep dive into it. This is where we enter what the Buddha called the middle way. It is the path that avoids the two extremes. The extreme of hedonistic pleasure-seeking, which we saw was the golden trap, and the extreme of self-mortification or life denial. The middle way is a path of practical wisdom, and it is encapsulated in the Noble Eightfold Path. We don't need to dissect all 8 steps right now, but they are divided into 3 major areas: wisdom, which we've covered by understanding dukkha and anicca, mental concentration, which we've practiced with sati and metta, and the third area, which is our focus now, sila or ethical conduct. Sila is the proof that we have mastered our mind. It is the bridge between our inner peace and our outer actions. A truly peaceful mind cannot, by its very nature, cause harm. The compassion, karuna, and kindness metta we've cultivated internally must manifest in how we speak, how we act, and how we make a living. Let's focus on 3 parts of this practical path: right action, right speech, and right livelihood. First, right speech, samavaka. This is perhaps the most challenging practice field in our daily lives. The monkey mind loves to talk. It talks to defend itself, to boast, to blame, to judge, and often just to fill the silence with noise. Most of our suffering in relationships comes from an untamed tongue. The practice of right speech is mindfulness applied to our voice. Before speaking, a trained mind asks, is it true? Stop lying, exaggerating, distorting. Is it kind? If it's true but cruel and unnecessary, why say it? This eliminates gossip, slander, and harsh speech. Is it useful? Does it help? Or just create more noise and confusion? Is it the right time? Even a kind, useful truth, spoken at the wrong time, can be harmful. Imagine a world where every person practiced this for just one day. Imagine the peace. The office gossip would disappear. The family fights based on angry words, Chapter 5, wouldn't start. Right speech is not about being falsely nice. It's about understanding that our words have immense power, karma, to create suffering or to heal. A tamed mind chooses to heal. Second, right action, sammakamanta. This is even more fundamental. It is the physical expression of our mind. The basic principle here is ahimsa, or non-harming. The classic Buddhist precepts are to abstain from killing, from stealing, and from sexual misconduct. But let's go beyond the obvious. Non-harming is an active principle. It's not just about not doing bad. It's about actively doing good. It means that when you act, your action comes from a place of clarity and compassion, not from a place of attachment, selfish gain, or aversion, anger. When you practice right action, you become aware of the impact of your choices. The way you drive, the way you consume, the way you treat the waiter. The untamed mind is selfish. It acts on impulse. I want that, I take it. Stealing, in a broader sense, can be taking credit for someone else's work. I'm angry, I hit. The tamed mind, filled with karuna, sees the interconnection. Chapter 7. It understands that harming another is ultimately harming oneself, as we are both part of the same fabric of reality. Third, right livelihood, samma ajiva. This is the teaching that brings Buddhism directly into our office, our factory, our store. The Buddha was incredibly pragmatic. He understood that we spend most of our waking day working. If our work is dedicated to causing suffering, how can we expect to find inner peace? Right livelihood means earning a living in a way that does not cause harm to oneself or others. The classic texts mention avoiding trade in weapons, poisons, slaves, intoxicants, or animals for slaughter. In the modern world, this expands. Is our work exploiting people? Are we destroying the environment? Are we selling products that addict or deceive? This doesn't mean everyone must quit their job and become a monk. It means bringing awareness to our work. It means doing our job, whatever it is, with integrity, with mindfulness, with the intention to serve rather than just to gain. You can be a janitor with right livelihood, creating a space of order and peace for others. And you can be a CEO of a company that practices the opposite, exploiting your employees. The title doesn't matter. The intention and the impact do. Living the middle way is true mastery. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's no longer a theory. It is the living proof that the mind has been tamed. Peace is not something you feel only in meditation. It is something you are in the world. In our final chapter, we will explore the ultimate result of all this, the true freedom of the mind. Chapter 10. The freedom to be nirvana in the here and now. We began this 10-chapter journey with a simple question: how to master the mind and find inner peace. We embarked on a deep exploration, using the 2,500-year-old wisdom of Buddhist teachings as our guide. We looked in the cloudy mirror of the monkey mind and unmasked the illusion of the self. Chapter 1. We investigated the anatomy of our suffering, dukkha, discovering it is born from our attachment and clinging, tanha. Chapter 2. We saw that the terrain of our existence is the ever-flowing river of impermanence, anicca, and that our fight against this current is the source of our pain. Chapter 3. Then we found our tools. We learned to cultivate the silent observer through mindfulness, sati, creating a gap of freedom between stimulus and response. Chapter 4. We used this tool to tame the destructive fire of anger, understanding it as a mask for pain and fear. Chapter 5. We examined the golden trap of pleasure, learning the crucial difference between liberating detachment and cold indifference. Chapter 6. From there, our heart began to open. We expanded our practice beyond ourselves, exploring active compassion, karuna, as the antidote to the illusion of separation. Chapter 7. We learned to not only observe our mind, but to actively cultivate a garden of loving kindness, metta. shifting our neural habits from negativity to warmth, Chapter 8. And finally, we brought all of this into the world, seeing how inner peace translates into right action and right speech in our daily lives, Sila, Chapter 9. And now here we are. What is left? What is the final result of mastering the mind? The answer, in the Buddhist tradition, is a word that is as famous as it is misunderstood: nirvana or nibbana in Pali. When we hear nirvana, our Western mind might jump to images of a cloudy heaven, a state of annihilation, or an ethereal paradise reached after death. But the Buddha was radically clear. Nirvana is not a place we go. It is an experience available to any human being, here and now. The word nirvana literally translates as to extinguish or to blow out. But what is extinguished? Not you, not your personality or your joy for life. What is extinguished are the 3 poisons we diagnosed at the beginning. What is blown out is the fire of attachment, the fire of aversion, anger, and the fire of ignorance, the illusion of the self. Nirvana is what remains when those fires go out. And what remains? Peace remains. Not a fragile peace that depends on things going our way, but a deep, unshakable peace that comes from no longer fighting reality. It is the peace of fully embracing anicca, impermanence, knowing that since everything changes, there is nothing solid to cling to, and that this is the greatest freedom. Nirvana is clarity. It is seeing the world not through the distorted filter of I, me, mine, but seeing it exactly as it is. It is seeing the interconnection of all things, Chapter 7, so vividly that compassion, karuna, is not something you practice. It is something you are. Nirvana is the freedom to be. It is the end of the internal war. It is the end of slavery to the monkey mind. The mind doesn't disappear. Thoughts still arise. Emotions still come and go. But they no longer own you. You are no longer the slave who reacts to every impulse. You have become the vast, open sky that allows the clouds, thoughts, emotions, sensations to pass through without being disturbed by them. Mastering the mind doesn't mean you will never feel sadness again, or that you'll never feel anger. You are human. The difference is that you change your relationship with these experiences. When sadness arises, you won't add the second arrow of suffering. Why me? I hate feeling this way. You will meet it with sati, mindfulness, and karuna, compassion. You will allow it, honor it, and let it go when it's time. The inner peace we seek is not a final destination. There isn't a day when you wake up and say, I did it. I've mastered my mind forever. Why? Because life is anicca, it's a process, not a fixed state. Inner peace is a daily practice. It is a path, not a destination. It is the path of remembering to wake up, moment by moment. It is the path of choosing the silent observer over the autopilot. It is the path of cultivating kindness, metta, instead of judgment. It is the path of living with open hands instead of clenched fists. The freedom Buddhism offers is not a freedom from life's circumstances. It is a freedom within life's circumstances. You can be in the middle of a traffic jam, a financial crisis, or a health problem, and still have access to a place of deep, unshakable peace within yourself. This peace is your true nature. It is not something you need to build. It is something you need to discover. It has always been there, buried under the layers of habits, fears, and illusions we call me. Mastering the mind is simply the act of unearthing what is already yours. Our 10-chapter journey comes to an end, but your real journey is just beginning. The knowledge we've shared here has no power if it remains just words. The power is in your practice. You now have the map, the diagnosis, and the tools. You have the wisdom of mindfulness, the balm of compassion, and the transformative strength of loving kindness. The only step missing is yours. If this 10-chapter journey resonated with you, if you felt a glimpse of the peace that is possible, I ask one last thing in return. Leave your like on this video, not as an automatic gesture, but as an act of intention. A like to seal your commitment to practice, to be kinder to yourself and to others. Your like and your comment tell us that this work matters and helps us reach more minds that are ready to awaken. And if you are not yet part of this community, click the subscribe button right now. The journey is long, and it's better to travel it together. We have much more to share. Thank you for dedicating your time, your attention, and your energy to this practice. May you take these teachings into your heart. May you master your mind, not by force, but by wisdom. And may you find the deep inner peace that is your birthright. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you have peace.